Hey everyone. Oops. Recently, two things happened, and it reminded me of a lot of other things that I generally think about. So, um, when we were in our previous house, we were taking the trash out, and Vikrant was helping me with that. And I said, turn this around and put that can in front of this one, and put the additional boxes on this side. And he asked me why, and I said, if the trash guy comes first, he can turn this around and take it. But if the recycle guy comes, you want him to have access to this portion. So he will push this out, and then he will have access to the other stuff. It was a bunch of things I said, and Vikrant looked at me and said, "Daddy, you think a lot." I think the point he was trying to make is it was unnecessary. The other thing happened recently was I was trying to teach, or I was teaching Vikrant driving. We were in a car, and I told him to, he was in the driving seat, and I said, turn right, but stay in the left lane. And then again, turn left and stay in the left lane. And he was like, why are you asking me that? So I said, because the next turn is going to be on the left, so you want to be on the left lane. Or there may be a turn on the left, but there may be traffic coming on from the left, so you want to be on the right side and then come to the left. So I'm thinking 2 steps ahead, and that's why I'm giving you this direction. And again, this time he didn't question it, but what that got me thinking about was, once you have trained your mind to think in steps, it's very difficult to get out of that mode. Strategy is all about coming up with a set of correlated, coordinated steps.
Lost satellite reception.
In response to a very specific problem. So, if you don't have a problem, if you are just coming up with, we are going to increase our revenue by 50% or whatnot, right? That's not a strategy. One, it's not in response to a specific problem, unless your specific problem is increasing your revenue. And two, it's not strategy, it's a goal. You are saying that you will do something, you are not telling how. Strategy is how to get to a specific point using certain number of steps. You could say, we will increase our risk tolerance, we will reduce our expenditure, we will focus on technology, we will have all those steps together. If they describe it correctly, comprise of a good strategy. There can be a good strategy, there can be a bad strategy, but regardless, a strategy is a set of steps that can take you to a certain point. But training one's mind to think in steps is what takes time. If you are thinking of next step, pretty much everybody is thinking of next step, so there is no tactical advantage there. If you think at least one step ahead, everybody is thinking of next step, you are thinking of another step ahead, you are probably ahead of 50% of people. Half of the people don't think beyond what's right in front of them. If you think 3 or 4 steps ahead, you are probably ahead of 90-95% of people. There are very few people who think beyond that. And after that, let's say you think 20 steps ahead, you're just wasting time. One, nobody thinks that far, so there is no tactical advantage going from a 99.99 percentile to 99.999 percentile, unless there is a person right in front of you who you are competing with and he's also thinking 15 steps ahead. Then yes, you'll have to think ahead, but otherwise it's a waste of time. Thinking 3, 4, 5 steps ahead gives you a very tactical, very useful tactical advantage without wasting a lot of your energy. But the second thing is, if you are thinking 20 steps ahead, each step is dependent upon the previous step being executed correctly. Think about chess. If you think 2 steps ahead, there are only 30, 60 possibilities you're talking about. If you want to think 5 steps ahead, that grows into millions. 20 steps ahead, there are billions of combinations that could happen. Not that they will happen. Many of them are not feasible or stupid, but literally the possibilities are grow exponentially. So that takes a lot of energy, not only to think about it, but you are not really gaining anything in terms of advantage. Any advantage is only helpful if it is over someone else or something else. If your competition is thinking 5 steps ahead and you think 7, you're good enough. If you think 10 or 20, it doesn't really matter. You're still ahead of your competition. Now, when I say thinking a couple steps ahead, that's what really differentiates a manager or a leader from someone who's not a leader. Very simple things. If you go to a meeting, let's say you were supposed to prepare a presentation 3 days ahead, but you didn't do it and you created it 2 hours before, and you found new information which is useful, so you include it. Now, it's a very simple example. If you include that information, it is useful to the company, but it also exposes the fact that you did not prepare this in time. Now, you could say it's a last minute addition, and that would be a win-win for everyone, but you won't do that unless you think ahead of time. In any situation, once you think what is going to happen and prepare yourselves for a proper response, you are going to have a good experience out of that activity. And depending upon how important your event is, if you are in a boardroom meeting, annual review, shareholders meeting, things like that, it will be worthwhile to spend maybe a week preparing your presentation, looking at responses, looking at who's attending the meeting, what their thoughts are, what are the questions around your areas, again reviewing it a day before to see if anything has changed. You spend more time strategizing, as opposed to if you're having a lunch with someone important, you really don't matter. You don't care that much about it. It doesn't really matter. You just give it a brief thought and then you move on. Same thing with emails or any kind of communication. The moment you see something, if you can spot something that can trigger a chain of events, it's really your training, your intuition that is telling you that this is not a good response, and you want to immediately go back and either fix it or tell the person who sent the email to fix it. But those things come from having trained your mind to think in steps. It's not rocket science. Strategy is a very simple process. You just need to take time to think in small steps and then train your mind to anticipate things without having to explicitly think about them. Eventually one can get to a zen kind of space where you don't need to think too much while strategizing, and you can just come up with the best response at the drop of a hat. So, alright, good talk.